I'm Robert, or Bob Birchall. I live in the Shetland Isles. I've lived there for 35 years, and I have hepatitis C. I'd been feeling a bit ill for a while, tired, non-specific symptoms. And I went to see my GP, and he suggested that I refrain from drinking, which I did. Later on, I developed, I was still feeling tired and ill all the time, and I also started to develop colitis. My GP referred me to a specialist, and he diagnosed the Hep C. He did a PCR and diagnosed the Hep C. He said at the time, I didn't know really what Hep C was. He said at the time, well, we can help you with the colitis, but we can't do much about the Hep C. I didn't really know what it was. I went home and started to do some research, and I realised that actually it wasn't very nice at all. So that was diagnosis, really. After that, I just started to research into it and see what it was. At that time, I was reasonably well. I had the fatigue a lot. I had aching bones and aching joints, headaches a lot. And that was all ascribed to the hepatitis and the colitis. I carried on living from day to day. I carried on going to work and doing that. I did a pretty physical job. I drove a forklift in a factory. And I was a safety officer there too, so I dealt with the safety. My mind was still working. I was still able to function. The specialist nurse came to see me after the biopsy, and she said, "Had you ever had a blood transfusion?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "When was that?" So I told her, to the best of my memory. And she said, "Well, that looks like it's where it's come from. Like, I haven't been an intravenous drug user. At the time, I didn't have any tattoos. And it must have come from there." Well, as far as they can establish, that's where it came from. So I went back to my GP, and he was very kind. He got the old records from the hospital where I was treated. It was a motorcycle accident, and the records proved that I'd had 4 pints of blood after following a motorbike accident. We're lucky to have the NHS. They scooped me up and put me in an ambulance and took me to the nearest hospital. Performed surgery on my legs, and that's when they gave me the blood, which was contaminated. I was 17 years old, you know. I think it's, I don't know. I've been infected most of my life and not known about it, and I just feel really bad about that they did that to me. It's a failing, you know, and it's a failing that I and a lot of other people are living with the consequences of. Really, that's all I want to say about that bit. Just, you know, if you had a blood transfusion in the 70s, right up to 91, they're saying, get tested. They gave me a pegylated interferon and ribavirin as the first treatment. This was long before any of this other stuff this new stuff was invented. This would have been 2010, possibly, which was an horrendous course of treatment. It's not nice at all. It makes you very ill. They stopped it at 24 weeks because it wasn't working. The viral load was just as high as it was when they started. So they stopped that. But after that, after the treatment, I started to go downhill pretty rapidly. I had to reduce my work hours to 3 days a week. I spent a lot of time sleeping. I'd come home from work on the days I did work, and I'd be asleep after my deal. Sometimes I didn't even get my evening meal before I was asleep. I'd sleep most of my days off. Just very, very tired all the time. Grumpy, anxious, you know, stressed out, depressed. It gradually got worse and worse. I left the job I was doing because I'd obtained some health and safety qualifications. I got a job as a safety advisor in the oil industry. Full self-employed, so I could work 3 days a week. Eventually I had to give that up as well. I was just too tired. I couldn't concentrate either. It's very difficult to concentrate when you've got these sort of things. It really affects your focus. And, you know, I've had mental health issues, I've had physical health issues for years, a lot long before diagnosis. I just thought I'm just a miserable so-and-so. I'm just an unhappy person. But I wonder how much of it is, because you've lived with it so long, because it's been part of you, it becomes part of your personality. And you just wonder if you're that sort of person who's always moaning, who's always feeling ill, you know, I'm a hypochondriac. You tend to put a lot of blame on yourself for the way you are. And to this day, I don't know how much it was the hepatitis and how much is my personality. What I do know is when I've been clear, in remission, after the half-only treatment, I did feel like a completely different person. And again, after the transplant, for about a month, I feel like a totally different person. Happy, contented, you know, sociable, all the things I wasn't before treatment or transplant. So that's the experience of it. That's what it's like.